Hello, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel, Christina's Cleaning and Homemaking. One of the things I love about spring and summer is strawberries and strawberry muffins especially. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make these strawberry muffins. It's with a recipe that I found online and I've made them quite a few times now and I love them, so I thought I'd share them with you guys. So if you don't mind, please click the subscribe button down below. And if you like this video, please click like and bake along with me, and I hope my video inspires you to make your own strawberry muffins. So to start, I take my strawberries. My husband usually gets a 2-pound container of strawberries for me. I don't use all of them, but of the ones that I do use, I wash them in the sink that's just off to the right out of frame. I'll cut off the part with the leaves, and then if there's any defects like bruises or anything on the strawberries, I'll cut that off too. And I'll go back over to the measuring cup and cut the strawberries into smaller pieces. I usually prefer to cut the strawberries up at least quartered, if not a little bit smaller, because it's just nicer when you're biting into a muffin if you don't get like a whole huge chunk of strawberry. So I usually prefer the smaller cut up strawberry pieces. So I go through each of the strawberries, wash them, remove the green part, and then I cut them up and I put them straight into the measuring cup so that way I know when I've reached the amount of strawberries that I need. The recipe calls for 1.5 cups, but we like strawberries a lot, so I'll usually use about 3 cups of strawberries in this recipe. Once I'm done cutting up the strawberries, I'll get the sugar and measure that out. I like using this plastic handheld measuring cup for the sugar and flour and such. So I'll pour 1/2 cup of sugar into that, and then I'll pour that in with the strawberries, and I'll let the strawberries sit for an hour. That way the juices from the strawberries can mix with the sugar, and it makes for a nice, sort of like a syrupy type consistency. But you let the strawberries sit for an hour with the sugar in them, so I usually have them on the counter and then I'll go about getting other things ready. But as you can see there, I stir it around a little bit to mix the sugar in with the strawberries, and then when I was cutting up the strawberries, one strawberry had fallen on the counter, and I didn't want a chance at staining the counter, so after I finished stirring the strawberries, I made sure to move the strawberries out of the way so I could spray down the counter and then wipe it to prevent the strawberry from staining the counter. And then I'll move the strawberries back to where they were, and I'll set the timer for an hour so that way I know to come back to the strawberries and start working on them again. Also, if you want to, instead of just letting them sit the entire hour and then work on the muffins, which is what I do in this case, I've also done it before where at about the half-hour mark I'll start putting the dry ingredients together, and I'll start working on the butter and the sugar mixture, and so by the time I hit the hour mark the strawberries are ready to go. But this time I decided to let the strawberries sit for the entire hour before working on the batter part, and it worked out just as well either way. So at this point I put in a 1/4 cup of butter, and it needs to be softened, so I let it sit out at room temperature the entire time that I'd been working on the strawberries and while the strawberries were sitting for the hour. And then to the butter I will also add a 1/4 cup of sugar, so you're basically creaming the butter in this case. And so usually I try and mash the butter down by hand and mix it in with the sugar a bit before I get the hand mixer out and start mixing that way. Now that I've got the sugar and butter mostly incorporated by hand, I'll go ahead and switch over to the hand mixer and put the pieces in that and start mixing the butter and sugar together that way, because the next thing I'm going to do is I add 2 eggs, and you add each one individually. So I'll get the eggs, and these are actually duck eggs that we get from a local person who raises ducks and chickens and sells the eggs. So that's the first duck egg, and then I'll incorporate that one, and then I'll also wash off the second one and put that one in. And I'm just in a habit of washing off the shells because of the fact that, you know, it comes pretty fresh and straight from the farm, if you will. So I always make sure to wash off the eggs and make sure that the shells are clean before I crack them and put the egg into the sugar and butter mixture. And it blends really nicely, and as you can see, they have really beautiful orange yolks on them. So I get both eggs mixed in, and then after that it's on to the next step, which starts with incorporating the flour mixture and then the juice from the strawberries alternately. At this point I'll start putting together the flour, the baking soda, and the salt, and that requires 1 cup and 3/4 of flour. It's just a regular multi-purpose baking flour that I use. And then the baking soda you'll see here in a moment, and I believe it's a teaspoon for that, but I will link the recipe down below so that way you'll have all the ingredients and measurements for that. And then for the salt part, I usually just, honestly I don't measure it, I just sort of use my salt grinder and I'll put the salt in, and I kind of ballpark it because I know roughly what 1/4 teaspoon is. So I'll ballpark the 1/4 teaspoon, and it's worked out each time just fine. At this point, I'll measure out the vanilla and put that in since I have the measuring spoons out. And then once I get the vanilla mixed into the batter, that's when I'll start incorporating the flour mixture into the butter and sugar mixture. Now that I have part of the flour mixture incorporated into the butter and sugar part, I'm pouring in the strawberry juice, and I try not to let strawberries fall in yet if I can, but sometimes it does happen, and it's not like it really causes any problems with the batter. It's just they're in there a little bit early. At this point, the batter was getting kind of thick, so I decided to go ahead and put the rest of the strawberry juice and the strawberries into the mixture since all the flour was in there already anyway. So now it'll all be completely incorporated and getting ready to go into the cupcake pan. And I'll show you that step in a moment when we get to that. Now that the batter's all mixed, I get a little bit of butter, less than a tablespoon probably, and I start using that little piece, the pat of butter, if you will, to butter the sides and the bottom of each of the cupcake holes. And so that way the batter won't stick and the muffins will come out. And I prefer using butter, like I said in my bread making video, over margarine or the sprays because my body does not like soy at all, and so I use butter or coconut oil or olive oil for whatever calls for it in a recipe. And so naturally with buttering each of the cupcake spots, I'm going to use butter instead of something artificial. Now that all the spots are buttered and ready, I'm going to use 2 spoons to scoop the batter in. 1 spoon pretty much to carry the batter there, and the other one to clear off the batter that might be lingering on the other spoon. And I usually try working with the edge closest to me, and as you can see, the one tray was making it a little bit of a stretch, so I decided to move it out of the way until I have the first tray all filled up. But I usually use just under a tray and a half. I've made the muffins a little bit on the larger side before, and they were kind of on the top heavy side, so I didn't like that too much. So now I just make slightly smaller muffins for the most part, and I'll use about a tray and a half to do that. Now that both trays are filled and my oven has preheated to 425 degrees, I'll go ahead and put the muffins in for about 15 minutes. The recipe calls for 15 to 18 minutes, but I find that sometimes I need to cook for a little bit less, like around 12 minutes. Otherwise, they'll taste a little bit overcooked, at least for my husband's taste. So I find that usually about 12 to 13 minutes does the trick for a batch about this size. Okay, so at this point the timer's gone off and the muffins are done, so I'm going to go ahead and get my oven mitts on and get the muffins out of the oven, and they came out perfect, but a really great consistency to them. They actually have sort of a cake type texture to them, which is very nice. And then I notice usually on the next day they'll have more of a bread kind of consistency to them, but all the strawberries cooked perfectly in them and they taste absolutely wonderful. So shortly after taking them out of the oven, I get this utensil that we have. It's kind of like a plastic spork really, but not kind from the restaurant, but the kind that you can reuse. And I'll scoop the muffins out that way, since the pans are a sort of Teflon based pan. And I get each of the muffins out and I'll sit them on the two plates that we keep on the counter, so that way they can cool off on the plates on the counter. So now the strawberry muffins are done and they turned out great. I hope this video inspires you to make some of your own strawberry muffins. Like I said at the very beginning, if you haven't yet, please click subscribe down below. And if you like this video, please click the like button, because that tells YouTube that you enjoyed the video and it will suggest the video to other people to watch. And I hope to see you in my next video.